Xin mời báo cáo đầu tiên Prof. Chin-Chen với đề tài các điểm mới trong phân loại lần thứ 5 của khu về các khối u bàng quang. Thì Professor Chin-Chen là một chuyên gia rất nổi tiếng trong lĩnh vực niệu học. Professor làm việc ở Đài Loan nhé. Thì ở đây các bạn sẽ thấy các thành tích của thầy. Có 119 bài nghiên cứu khoa học và được mời làm lecturer đó, được báo cáo 28 lần. Xin kính mời Professor báo cáo bài báo cáo của mình. What's review in full classification of bladder tumor, please.
Thanks for the kind introduction. I think it's the first time I come to the solution. And I come from Taipei Veteran General Hospital. And this is the largest medical center in northern Taiwan. We have more than 3,000 beds and near 9,000 employees. And we serve the larger amount of outpatient hospitalization. And our hospital has a very large campus, including a lake in the garden, so like a resort. Our hospital has a good connection with the Vietnamese hospital. Last month we just received the approval from Hanoi. I hope we will have more frequent connection in the future. And the topic assigned to me is what's new in WHO fifth classification of bladder tumors. Honestly speaking, there is nothing new. Quite old. And we know that urothelial tumors are divergent. And I will say that the urological pathologies are divergent too. And after years of discussion, very little consensus has been achieved. So the new WHO Blue Book, to me, it just summarizes those arguments without taking sides. So the readers have to decide what they think best for their practice. And this is the outline of my talk. We will first talk about grade and the stage, especially the T1 substage, the molecular subtyping, and the variant. In terms of grade, we have to cite the 1973 WHO classification, the first edition of WHO. And this book is still on my bookshelf, like an antique. And in this book, the urothelial tumors was graded as Carcinoma and the grade 1, 2, 3 of transcendental cell carcinoma. But what did this blue book say about grading? Just one sentence. Grade 1 tumors have the least degree of anaplasia compatible with the diagnosis of malignancy. Grade 3 applies to tumor with the most severe degrees of cellular anaplasia. And the grade 2 lies in between. That's the only definition about grading in the first edition of the Blue Book. Actually, it is no definition at all. This is just similar to what we said about well-differentiated, moderately differentiated, and fully differentiated. There's no clear-cut criteria for each grade. Of course, the grading system has a prognostic implication since it reflects differentiation. So you will say that this grade is useful. I won't disagree with that. And this is perhaps one of the longest grading systems we have used in the pathology field. And since that, this is a textbook in 1984. And it starts to give a more definition about the grade. For example, they say that grade 1 lesion has limited nuclear abnormality. Grade 2 lesion shows significant nuclear abnormality in about half of cells. And the grade 3 shows significant nuclear abnormality in nearly all the cells. So the grading is determined by the proportion. If it is less than half, it's grade 2. If it is more than half, it's grade 3. But actually, we now think that this is not correct. We cannot translate the definition for cervical cancer to bladder. So I think not many patients pay attention to this grading system. And it seems that there are several grading systems proposed this year. And we should note that in the AFFD article written by Dr. William Murphy, the carcinoma is graded into low grade and high grade. And you will notice that there is no borderline lesion between papilloma and the carcinoma. So what we say about papillary urothelial neoplasm of low minute potential does not exist in Murphy's classification. And then the 1998 ISUP proposed a more defined criteria for the grading system. And in this classification, a term such as papillary neoplasm of low magnetic potential, PUNLMP, was created. And the carcinoma is graded as a low grade and high grade. I think the contribution of this grading system is that this addition gives a much clearer definition about each category in terms of the cytology and the architecture. So this is the flow chart we use to grade the tumor. First, we view at the low magnification to see whether there is a true papillary front. If there is just a tenting or ambulation of the urothelium, but without true fibrovascular cord, it is a papillary hyperplasia. And if there is a branching fibrovascular cord or frequent fragmentation and detachment from the urothelium, and we will see it as a true papillary front. And we then look at the lining epithelium. If the diameter is nearly normal, it's a papilloma. And if there is a significant thickening of the urothelium, but with very minimal variation, including the architecture, the nuclei are usually oval in shape, and with long axis perpendicular to the basement membrane, and the nuclei tend to be vesicular with a small nucleoli and with frequent nuclear group in the UNLP. And if there is a significant variation about the cytology and architecture, some cells darker, some lighter, some bigger, some smaller, but the architecture is still in orderly pattern, is a low grade. And if the tumor shows very significant pleomorphism and loss of polarity, discohesiveness, and this is a high grade tumor. Of course, there is still some subjective in this grading system because you may say this is a disorder, but I say this is okay, it's not disorder. So there is still some subjective area in this grading, but at least we have a much more clear criteria to follow. And since the 1998, there came a very strange addition of WHO. It is 1999 WHO. I guess many of you do not know the existence of this book. It's the last small book, and 5 years later, the WHO published the larger blue book. And in this second edition, PUNLP was used. But the papillary urothelial carcinoma still graded as grade 1, 2, 3, and not the low grade and high grade. This is somewhat like an interim addition. And soon, WHO published the 2004 classification. And this classification almost identical to the 1998 ISAP classification. And our study showed that the classification is useful in quantification, and they can divide the urothelial tumor into several categories. The PUNLP has the best prognosis, and followed by low-grade tumor, high-grade T1, and the high-grade T2, high-grade TA and high-grade T1. And there is also the issue about the translation into classification. Actually, there is no one-to-one translation, so you cannot directly translate the formerly diagnosed grade 1 to 3 into the new classification. This is no longer an issue in Taiwan, because the vast majority of the Taiwanese pathologists use the low-high system. And our urologists also accept the low-high system and have already written it into the clinical guidelines. So this is the relationship of each classification. Basically, the papilloma are the same, and the grade 3 are all high grade. But there are significant overlap between the grade 1, grade 2, and the new classification. And in the past, the grade 2 is the largest proportion because we tend to avoid extremes. So a lot of the tumor was diagnosed as grade 2. But now the high grade becomes the largest group, because if you see something wrong, you will call it high grade. And then now there are people start to think about whether we should separate the high grade into high grade and the very high grade. But of course, we need some more clear clarification for such substaging. And the urothelial tumor is also heterogeneous in grading. But and this addition suggests using 5% of the cutoff value. If the high grade component is accounted for more than 5%, it should be graded as high grade. But if it's less than 5%, the WHO group suggests that you can call it distributed as a low grade tumor with less than 5% high grade component. And our unpublished data show that the tumor is determined by the highest grade within the tumor. So if you of course, you don't need to calculate the percentage, but you just see the slide, and then you think if you think that this hybrid component is large enough to not to be overlooked, and then you can call it a hybrid. Or otherwise, you can call it low grade and give a descriptor. Now we look at the next topic, the substaging of the laminar propria invasion. And we know that for cystectomy specimen, it is not a difficult issue because the specimen is well oriented. But in the QR specimen, it's always the fragmentation and with cortisol orientation. So you cannot exactly see the topographical relationship of the invasion to the urothelium and the laminar propria. And some resort to the anatomical landmark like the mucosa, muscularis mucosae or the venous complex structure in the laminar propria, but they are inconsistent structure. So you can always find those structures for you to substage the T1 case. But the accumulative data of T1 already show that most of them show clinical significance. So it is good to substage because it has a clinical relevance. And there are several methods that you can consider using the traditional the landmark, or you can measure the depth of invasion of the intestinal next to the urothelium or to the papillary front. And if there is not good orientation for you to measure the depth of invasion, you can measure the largest dimension of the invasion next. And this also clinical significance. And then you can also use the microscopic field as a guideline. And if it is smaller than a high power field, it's a focal, and larger than high power field is extensive. And this is also one of the methods. And our study using different cutoff value like 1.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter, and 1.5 millimeter, and all of them show clinical significance. But we recommend using 1 millimeter as a cutoff value because it is around the diameter of the 200 magnification, so it's very easy to use. And you don't need to measure the depth of invasion, but just look at the invasive fronts. These cases are focal invasion, like the single cell drop off from the urothelium, or small irregular nest in the myxoid in the inflammatory stroma, and a cluster of small nests but less than 1 millimeter, and all of these are focal invasion. And if it is more than 1 millimeter, such like this cancer, or there is invasive muscularis mucosis, and there is certainly the extensively invasive T1 cases. And this shows clinical significance. And in my department, we routinely substage the T1 case. It's not a difficult test for the pathology to do. And this is show the significance of this substaging. And we found that, of course, the PUNLP has the best prognosis, and followed by low-grade tumor. And the low-grade tumor has there is no difference of prognosis significance between TA and the T1 low-grade tumor. And then TA high-grade tumor, T1 focal invasive high-grade tumor, and then T1 extensively invasive high-grade tumor. And all of these have a better prognosis than T2 tumor. And we now, I would like to address the invasive low-grade hepatocellular carcinoma, and Dr. Epstein's analysis, 41 such cases. And according to our data, actually the invasive low-grade tumor is very few. If you use 1 millimeter as a cutoff value, and all of these tumors are within 1 millimeter, so all of the low-grade, T1 low-grade tumor are focal, no extensive case. And I'm aware that in some situations, T1 low-grade tumor are more frequently diagnosed. But to me, it is either overstaged or undergraded. And this is a multi-institutional inter-observer study. And we can see that less than half of the cases have a full agreement in diagnosis of the lamina propria invasion. And a significant amount of pathologists are discordant in terms of to identify the invasive front of low-grade tumor. So this is some example, such as the very limited small cells protruding from basement membrane, and but the invasive front are still attached to the patent to the nest, or there are some small nests, but keep a round contour. And for this case, some pathologists think that they are invasion, but the others don't. So I say the pathologists are divergent. There's very few agreement. Okay. Now we will address the molecular subtyping. And we know that the urothelial carcinoma is divergent. Actually, there is a dichotomy of the urothelial tumor. It follows two different pathways. The low-grade superficial pathway is characterized by the FGFR3 mutation and the T53 wild type. And the high-grade tumor is characterized by T53 mutation and the FGFR3 wild type. And the low-grade tumor can progress to the high-grade tumor, and the high-grade tumor may arise de novo from fat lesion, from dysplasia or carcinoma in situ. And it is obviously that the high-grade tumor has much more molecular operation than low-grade tumor. So there is a dichotomy of the urothelial tumor. So there are a lot of molecular study about the urothelial tumor. And the last WHO group cites the study from N.B. Anderson. And this group tried to separate the urothelial tumor into basal type and the luminal type, similar to that we interpreted for breast cancer. And then they use three common markers: CK5/6, CD44, and CK20. And then they found that such substation has clinical significance. The basal tumor has worse prognosis than luminal type tumor. And they also find a P53-like phenotype. This is not characterized by P53 mutation, but the overexpression of wild type P53. And this addition cited a consensus molecular classification of muscle-invasive bladder cancer. And it is a meta-analysis of 6 series, including the Baylor, University of North Carolina, N.B. Anderson, TGGA, and the French group, and the London University group. And they use different terms for the molecular subtyping. And then this consensus molecular classification try to harmonize those different molecular subtypes. Basically, there are two groups. One group is called the luminal type, similar to what the antiandrogens state. And then this is a large group. And it is further subtyped as luminal papillary, luminal non-specific, and luminal unstable. And the second largest group is the basal squamous group. And there are two smaller groups called the stroma rich and the neuroendocrine light. And this subtype has clinical significance. The neuroendocrine light has the worst prognosis, and the basal squamous and the luminal unspecific has the second worst prognosis. And the other three have a similar prognosis, a better prognosis. And you don't need to be scared about the complicated molecular subtype. Actually, this is the summary of the molecular subtype. And the luminal papillary type actually corresponds to the superficial papillary loceal carcinoma, and that may progress into the muscle invasion. So it retains the molecular signatures of the low-grade papillary tumor, such as FGFRC mutation. And so you frequently have a papillary morphology. And the luminal non-specific subtype is a specific type. It has a unique molecular finding. And it frequently shows the micropapillary value. And the luminal unstable type it shows the urothelial tumor with genomic instability. So it has an accumulation of many different mutations. And then the stroma rich may refer to the tumor with desmoplastic reaction. And then someone thought that some cases showing EMT, epithelial mesenchymal transmission, may be also be included in this group. Because the expression analysis actually cannot discern the tumor cell from non-tumor cell. And the basal squamous, as we expected, it shows the squamous differentiation. And the one characteristic of this tumor is that it induces the cytotoxic T cell. So this kind of tumor may be eligible for IO. And in the past, the basal squamous cell is considered to be chemo-resistant. But now, they maybe have more options, such as if you do the PD-L1 test for this tumor, they frequently show high expression. And finally, the neuroendocrine cell, neuroendocrine group corresponds to the small cell neuroendocrine carcinoma, because this is the most common neuroendocrine cell tumor in the bladder. So each variant corresponds to a specific, certain histological subtype. So what's the use of those expensive and time-consuming molecular technology? I think a well-trained, competent pathologist can tell you what it is within 10 seconds for free. So we must be confident about ourselves. The pathologist's eyes are still invaluable. But yet we still can translate the molecular finding into our daily practice. And personally, I recommend two very simple biomarkers, GATA3 and CK56. And then if the tumor shows diffuse immunoreactivity for GATA3, but the negative or very focal for CK56 is a luminal type. And then if this tumor shows high expression, diffuse expression of the CK56, but a very weak GATA3 immunostem in comparison, this is a basal type. And occasionally we will see some cases showing immunoreactivity, diffuse reactivity for both markers. And then this is the double positive type. And the nature of this double positive is unknown, but somewhat I believe they are initially luminal type, but acquiring the squamous phenotype during the progression. And there are also some cases showing double negative. And for those cases, they may be undifferentiated, or you may consider metastasis. So I think that we can use some very simple in IFC to make a molecular classification. And then finally, this is the variants described in the WHO book. That I will not go through this one by one, but you may refer to the book. And this variant have a prognostic significance. So when you see them, you should report them in your report. Finally, we may compare the last addition to the present one. And the first difference is that in the last addition, the infiltrating tumor is put before the non-invasive tumor. And then in this addition, the non-invasive tumor is put before the invasive tumor. I think that is more reasonable. The tumor is progressed from non-invasive to invasive. And then there are some differences. In previous addition, there is two flat lesions. Urocell proliferation on certain malignant potential and the urocell dysplasia. But these two entities were deleted in the present literature group. And it is included in the description for the carcinoma in situ. The urocell dysplasia is defined as falling short of evidence. That means if you think that there is something wrong about the lesion, but you dare not to call it a carcinoma in situ, you call it dysplasia. So it has no definition for its own. It is defined as a lacking of evidence. Another category is called is the flat papillary urocell hyperplasia in the previous addition. And in the last addition is called the flat papillary urocell proliferation of undetermined malignant potential. And why we change the term? Because there are some molecular evidence showing that these lesions are clonal in nature, so they are not hyperplasia for the pre-neoplastic process. But actually, but obviously the urologists do not like anything undetermined. So if you call it undetermined malignant potential, they will call you and ask you what I should do. So this is a problem. And for myself, if this lesion is de novo, there's no previous history of cancer and no concomitant finding of cancer, I will still use the papillary or flat hyperplasia. And just let the urologist know that he should follow up the case, but do not overtreat them. But if the case has already cancer in the history, or it has concomitant cancer, you may call it undetermined malignant potential because the urologist do not care about it. And the patient already has cancer. So that is so I would say that the diagnosis is sometimes an art, not always scientific. Okay, that's my first talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Tan Chin-Chen. Please, the second topic.
My second topic is about the evolution of renal cell carcinoma classification from Grawitz to WHO 2022. And it's a long story spanning for 200 years. If you know Grawitz tumor, it means that you are as old as I am. So this is a very old term, Grawitz tumor. But the members of SUQ know this term because they always have a Grawitz dinner each year. This is the Grawitz. And And the RCC classification was first proposed in 19th century by Dr. Tony. And he classified the tumor by growth finding. Of course, it is not very precise, but we will still notice that there are some terms very, very useful, such as steratomatous, which means that tumor is yellow in shape, like fat. And then Dr. Grawitz, he is a German pathologist. He is an assistant of the great Dr. Virchow. He described the yellow tumor as lipoma, and he later concluded that they derived from intrarenal adrenal rest. So he called it hypernephroma. This is certainly not correct. We know that it's not correct, but this is what he thought about this tumor. So this is the textbook I used when I was the medical student. And you will see that the RCC are still called renal hypernephroma in that textbook. This book is still on my bookshelf. I like to collect old books. And it's also called adenocarcinoma, clear cell carcinoma, and Grawitz tumor. But if you look at the description, you will find that he described it very precisely, like water clear and a plant-like cell. And now we use the plant-like cell to describe the chromophobe RCC. But it has already been used in hypersensitive form. And okay. And he even proposed the Martin criteria, like size other than over 3 cm diameter, a typical remote cell. And this is the first WHO blue book. This book is still on my bookshelf. And it says that epithelial tumor of renal parenchyma include adenoma and carcinoma. There is only one type of carcinoma called renal cell carcinoma and others. So the pathologists were very easy in those good old days. But we now see that we were more than 1,000 of renal cell carcinoma. But at that time there was only one type. But if you look at the description, you will find you will also find that most of it has already been described. Acinar, tubular, cystic, papillary, solid, and clear cells, and granular cells, and the spindle cells are all described in the older blue book. And then if you look at the photographs in that book, you will find clear cell carcinoma, clear cell renal cell, and a papillary tumor with a foam cell in the stroma. And this is definitely chromophobe RCC. And this shows the sarcomatoid change. So almost every type of RCC had already been included in the first group, even they do not classify them, but it has already been included. And how do we classify? We classify everything in our life. This is a human function. We try to put everything into different categories. So we also classify RCC. We classify RCC according to morphology, histochemistry, ultrasound structure, and the neuroskeletal findings, and the clinical syndromes, and now cytogenetics and molecular genetics. And now we see the first one. And the first comprehensive classification was proposed by a group of German pathologists, so sometimes called the main classification. And it is exclusively on histology and EM ultrastructure. Now I think we don't use EM to classify RCC, but that is the weapon they used at that time. And they classify into clear cell chromophobe, and this is the first time the chromophobe was proposed. And the chromophilic, in concept of chromophobe, they create a term like chromophilic. And this is the papillary RCC, now we call it. And then they have already subtyped the papillary RCC into basophilic and eosinophilic type. And then there was also pleomorphic and oncocytic, that is correspond to the oncocytoma. And then they also graded the tumor. And then you may notice that in the eosinophilic chromophilic subtype, there is no grade 1 tumor. That is actually very accurate, because now we know that type 2 papillary RCC are all high grade. So that has already been described in half a century ago. So we must pay high respect to our teachers, and they did a tremendous job, even with very limited resources. And after that, the same group keep describing chromophobe RCC, including the health colloidal iron. That is one of the gold standard in the past for the diagnosis of chromophobe RCC. And then they classified chromophobe RCC into classical variant and the eosinophilic variant. That we still keep that. And but it is strange that this thing didn't not get much attention since that time. And not until 1995, people start to more extensively describe the chromophore RCC. So it takes almost 10 years for disease entity to be fully recognized. Okay. And the next next classification is called Heidelberg classification. And in this classification, the malignant part, the clear cell RCC was changed to common or conventional renal cell carcinoma. And the reason they changed the name is that they think the clear cell RCC are not always clear. And it may have a granular cell. So the granular cell carcinoma are no longer used, but they included in together with clear cell RCC as conventional RCC. And when I was a fellow in Johns Hopkins under Dr. Exton from 1998 to 1999, the Johns Hopkins used this classification. So we call clear cell RCC as conventional renal cell RCC. And after I went back to Taiwan, I still use this term, conventional renal cell RCC. But our urologists did not like it. So very shortly, I went back to clear cell RCC. And another change is that for the sarcomatoid change. We used to call a tumor, some tumor as sarcomatoid RCC, but in this classification, this is no longer recommended because the sarcomatoid change can happen in every kind of RCC. So you should diagnose the tumor based on the better differentiated part, not the sarcomatoid part. But if you couldn't find any better differentiated part, it is suggested to call it renal cell, unclassified renal cell carcinoma with sarcomatoid change. That's a discursive term, and the urologist did not like it either. And this is the second addition, the strange addition. And it looked like a compromise of those former classification. So we will have a clear cell RCC, but it will still have a granular cell RCC. But actually, these two RCC are the same. And we have a chromophore RCC, spindle cell carcinoma. This is still included in this strange addition. And there were some other changes like collecting data carcinoma or cystic renal cell carcinoma, and so on. And the story doesn't end here. The chromophore RCC now is confused with other oncocytic and chromophobe tumor. And there are some overlapping tumor. For example, the hybrid oncocytic chromophobe tumor, or the HOC. That was initially described in patient with the Burghardt-Dubé syndrome. And this tumor shows a borderline morphology between eosinophilic variant of chromophore RCC and renal oncocytoma. And then you cannot make a determination which one is the best. So you call it HOC. The question rests that whether we can call a tumor HOC for patients without the Burghardt-Dubé syndrome. Some people say that we could, and so there are sporadic HOC. But I know that in some institutions, the HOC is only exclusively used for patients with Burghardt-Dubé syndrome. So in this addition, there is an entity called other oncocytic tumor. The definition is that it is a heterogeneous group of oncocytic tumor not classifiable as oncocytoma, chromophore RCC, or other tumor type with a single feature, such as the tumor frequently have a mutation in the editor pathway. And in the literature, the tumor is sometimes subtyped as high-grade HOC. High-grade oncocytic is called HOC, and the low-grade oncocytic is LOC. But this addition of WHO does not recommend it. So this is the description of this tumor. And first, we need to exclude other possibility, include former hydroxylase disease RCC, oncocytoma like PCOMA, translocation RCC, and eosinophilic solid and cystic RCC. And the remaining tumor has not typical untypical morphology or untypical immunochemistry. For example, it may show diffuse positive for CK7, but the negative for CD117, or on the contrary, it may be diffusely positive for CD117, but negative for CKT, and the morphology is in borderline. And some of these tumors may be associated with mTOR mutation. And this tumor can be classified as oncocytic tumor, not otherwise specified. Otherwise, and it should be separated from unclassified RCC. Because if you say the tumor is unclassified RCC, the clinician always think that it's a bad tumor, it's a great tumor. But this tumor is a rather indolent, so it should be separated from unclassified RCC. This is an example. The tumor is it's a pink cell tumor, and it has a round nucleoli with occasional nucleoli. And in some area, there seems to be some perinuclear halo. But the morphology, but the IHCs are not always compatible. And for this tumor, you may call it oncocytic tumor, not otherwise specified. And another group of tumor is the so-called eosinophilic bacterial tumor. And these tumors demonstrate the sporadic TSC and mTOR mutation. And these tumors show pink cytoplasm and frequent vascularization. And in some areas, it also show the stroma similar to oncocytoma. And the tumor shows diffuse reactivity for CD17, CD7, but the focal particle for CK7. And the hallmark of this tumor is that it shows higher expression of cathepsin K, and molecularly it shows an mTOR activation. So that's the reason that this group try to define the new entity of the eosinophilic bacterial tumor. And now we go to the next morphology defined tumor. It's called the mucinous tuberous spindle cell carcinoma. And this tumor was formerly described under different terms. For example, the first author of the second article is Dr. Pawani. Okay, and the reason why we try to want to separate the tumor from substomatoid RCC, because these tumors very often have a spindle stroma and may be misdiagnosed as substomatoid RCC, but these tumors are low grade, so they should be definitely separated from low grade from sarcomatoid carcinoma. IHC is not useful for the diagnosis. And the other type is the tumorocytic carcinoma. It can only be used for the tumor showing inclusive pattern for tumorocytic. And then if you find a papillary or polydifferential foci, you must consider other possibilities. And this tumor has some confusion with the papillary, whether it is considered a variant of papillary RCC. There are some studies showing either way. Okay. And the cluster analysis of tumorocytic carcinoma show that this tumor clustered with papillary RCC. So it may be a variant of papillary RCC, but now it is defined purely on morphology feature. And the third one is the eosinophilic sardic cystic renal cell carcinoma. And this tumor is also a notoriously pink tumor. And it may show extensive CT change or focal CT structure. And this tumor is positive for MACR. And the hallmark of the tumor is the immunoreactivity for CK20. And it may be diffuse or focal. Now we go to the third category, the RCC defined by clinical syndrome. And the first one is RCC in end-stage renal disease. And one of the prototype of the tumor is the ACKD associated RCC. It is characterized by the eosinophilic cell equilibrium and papillary pattern and with frequent ocellular crystal. And aside from that, there's another group of tumor called clear cell papillary RCC of the end-stage kidney. Was first proposed in a paper about the RCC observed in end-stage renal disease. And the clear cell papillary RCC have the mixed clear cell makes the as thinner and the clear cell, the papillary pattern, but aligned with clear cells. And the hallmark of this tumor is the reverse polarity of the nucleus, that the nucleus are aligned at the luminal side rather than the basal side. And the IGC show that the tumor is diffusely positive for CK7. And this tumor confused with another group of tumor proposed by a sex pathologist that called renal angiomyoadenomatous tumor, RAT. And you should notice that this tumor was considered benign by this group of pathologists. And you see the picture they report is very similar to the clear cell papillary RCC. They call the shark smile, the large acina with reverse polarity and the frequent apical snout. And the tumor is also diffusely positive of CK7. But one characteristic they post is that it has a myomatous stroma within the tumor. So that's why they call it angiomyomatous tumor. Okay. And at first, this group say that they are different. They say the RT and clear papillary are different. But later, a lot of studies show that actually they are variants of the same spectrum. So finally, the sex group agree that they are the same. And now the tumor is considered have a very low malignant potential. So in the last edition of WH edition, it was changed to renal cell tumor of low malignant potential rather than carcinoma. So finally, we will look at the molecularly defined RCC. I think this part will overlap with what Dr. Pawani will talk about later. So I will shorten this part. Just a quick review of this entity. And we review the prototype of RCC, the clear cell RCC. There are TCG data, but here I put the Japanese group that was published in Nature Genetics. This is a very good comprehensive NGS analysis. And in this group, as we expected, the vast majority of the clear cell RCC have a mutation involving VHL and the genes in the HIP, hypoxia-inducible factor, the pathway. But there is also a small group that has a T7-1, now we call the ALOC mutation. And these groups are mutually exclusive to the VHL mutation. So this group may be considered as a VHL wild type clear cell RCC. But actually, although they have a different mutation, they finally involve the same pathway of the VHL. So you may say it still is a clear cell RCC, but just with a different mutation, but the same kind of pathway. And later, paper published in the Modern Pathology more defined the T7 mutated RCC. And this tumor showed different CNV with clear cell. It is characterized by chromosome 8, the location where T7-1 is located, the loss of this gene, rather than the 3P. And it has a hotspot involving the 79 residue of the T7 gene. So if you want to confirm it by molecular study, it's not very difficult. You just need to flank this region by a single PCR. You just confirm the diagnosis. This tumor then confused with another tumor called the tuberous sclerosis of Soldier RCC. Then this is a series report of the tumor. You can see that the morphology features are somewhat similar. Also show the clear cell with the papillary structure and the frequent leiomyomatous stroma. And the disease is positive for CK7, and it shows a cup shape of CA9. So it is overlapping with the clear cell pattern RCT. And so there comes a lot of studies addressing this specific subtype, like renal cell carcinoma with angioedema-like stroma, and with the tumor harbors somatic mutation on TSC1, 2, and 4, and a lot of such studies addressing this issue.